Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Rule of Two podcast, a podcast where we talk about anything and everything Star Wars. I'm your host, Aaron Richland, and with me is a very, very special guest, the same guy with me every time, Sean Ritter. How's it going, man?
What's up, dude? I don't know if I'm that special, but thanks for the intro.
You know, I thought I'd make you feel better.
I appreciate it.
A little bit.
What are we talking about today, bro?
Well, so I did say that we talk about anything and everything Star Wars, but I'm going to amend that a little bit. We do talk about anything and everything Star Wars, except for those stupid-ass mobile games that are pay-to-play. Fuck those things. I don't even want to talk about them.
Except we're going to be talking about games today.
So
we'll probably talk a little bit about those. And, I mean, I spent a lot of time playing, what was it called? It was
Galaxy
a battle style.
Or...
I think it was it Galaxy of
One
Heroes?
of those stupid card games. I tried to get into them.
No, it wasn't card games. It was, you had like a team of like 5 people and you would face off against other computers.
I wouldn't know.
I'm going to find out. We'll move on. Let me look it up.
Well, either way. So, like Sean said, we're going to be talking about Star Wars video games and, kind of the state of Star Wars video games, the history of Star Wars video games, and hopefully the future of Star Wars video games. So, Sean, just real quick before we get any further into it, what is your favorite Star Wars video game?
Favorite Star Wars video game of all time?
Of all time.
It's a really, really easy one. And it's got to be Battlefront 2.
The new one.
On the PlayStation 4, of course. It's fantastic. EA is a great video game company. I love the pay-to-play aspect of it, the loot boxes. It's fantastic.
So, didn't they kind of get rid of that loot box stuff, or did they kind of bring it back?
I don't know, but I'm being fucking sarcastic. I hate that goddamn game.
Okay.
It's a piece of shit. It's, without a doubt, no questions asked, Knights of the Old Republic.
2?
No, 1. I mean, 2 I enjoyed 2, but I feel like that's one of those games where they definitely improved on the gameplay. Like, there were some things about the gameplay that were a little bit better than the first one. But the story in the first one was just so amazing. KOTOR, hands down, no questions.
I have to agree with you. There's nothing that really beats the storyline, in my opinion, in video games, really. I mean, maybe I'm a little bit biased because I love Star Wars, but I like to think that Star Wars Knights of the Republic is the best game of all time. I put it up there with Breath of the Wild and the 64.
Yeah. I mean, I agree for sure.
Time. What can I think of what the game was? I was like sitting there struggling for like 30 seconds.
It also introduced us to one of the greatest Star Wars characters in the entire series, in my opinion, and the one who gave us the name for our podcast, Darth Revan.
Sean. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
That would be a Mr. Darth Revan.
No, Darth Bane gave us the name for the podcast. He came up with the rule of 2.
And where did he get the idea from, Aaron?
Okay, maybe I forgot the whole background to it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I've only read those books once. I think you've read them like 3 times.
I've read them quite a few times. Yeah. I've got my artwork up there, man.
Oh yeah. Oh man. So anyway, Star Wars video games. Let's get into it. Let's start first with.
Well, wait. What about your least favorite Star Wars video game?
My least favorite. Man, there's not a whole lot. Probably Battlefront 1. That just came out like 3 years ago. I've heard Battlefront 2 is a lot better than Battlefront 1. I mean,
they improved on a lot of stuff.
They have a little bit of a story mode.
The story mode was actually pretty cool. I did enjoy playing through that.
And Shiva Kamina Somakondakarov is the person who plays the girl.
I've never watched The League, but I know that that's what it's from.
Can't believe I said it right, actually.
Can't believe I remember that that's what it was from. Yeah, the storyline was really great. So you're saying the new Battlefront one? I
think it's more just because it was such a letdown to me that I just hated it so much that it was built up. I'm like, this is the first big Star Wars video game in years, sort of. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a Star Wars video game that I hate worse, and I can't think of one off the top of my head. You can't think of another one?
The Force Unleashed 2. That was pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
The first one was cool.
Yeah.
And fun to play. The second one just, man, I did not like it.
They didn't really do anything different. I mean, you got an extra lightsaber in that. You had 2 lightsabers instead of 1.
Like KOTOR 2, for example, it was a better game in that, you had more to do and it was
There
just
was
a more
there was more to
in-depth,
do.
robust game. But the storyline wasn't as good. I didn't like it as good as that KOTOR one. But they didn't even come close to that.
Yeah,
in The Force Unleashed.
I totally agree. With KOTOR 2, they introduced things like being able to influence your party members to either go to the light side or the dark side. And you could teach them. They could become like Force sensitive, and they could become like Jedi or Sith, depending on how you interacted with them and like what you said to them, which wasn't a thing in the first one. But yeah, the Force Unleashed 2 didn't. You got an extra lightsaber, and like that was it.
But the good thing that
And the story was
The Force Unleashed
retarded.
yeah, it was. So one thing that The Force Unleashed did do for us was introduce us to Sam Witwer, who is awesome. The actor who they did the voice and
He was modeled after his likeness, and
I think he's been involved pretty heavily in the Star Wars since then. In Clone Wars, I think in the cartoons, I think he also did the voice of Darth Maul in Solo.
Oh, really? Interesting. Cool. Didn't know that. That's pretty sweet. So he's a cool guy, and I did like the Force Unleashed.
Except for when they brought down that Star Destroyer. That was a little weird. It was cool.
It was cool, dude. It was cool. It doesn't forget about the realm of possibilities where it comes to. We're talking about a universe where there's force and light laser swords and hyperspace travel. I mean, yeah, I get it. It probably could never happen, but it was still sweet.
Let's kind of jump into a little bit of history about Star Wars. I'm gonna take everybody on a
Star Wars video games.
Star Wars video games. Yes, everybody should know the history of Star Wars.
What was the first Star Wars? Was it Super Star Wars? Or no, it was probably back.
Well, I'm not going to go that far back.
I guess I'm that far back.
I'm more going to the history
like arcade
of
games
Star Wars
stuff,
development in specifically LucasArts, right? So LucasArts actually. So what had happened was George Lucas saw the burgeoning market in like the late 70s, early 80s of video games in general. Like not a lot of movie people really saw the appeal, but Nintendo kind of broke out on the scene. Atari was up there, and just making boatloads of money, right?
Right, of course.
So George Lucas, being the kind of marketing genius that he is, because he made Star Wars and he made the Star Wars Empire of like all the material that he owned 100% of up until 7 years ago.
Marketing genius.
Yeah, so
not so good at directing, but
So he created what was called at the time Lucasfilm Games, a subsidiary of Lucasfilm. And I believe it was like 1979, 1980, something like that. But all the Star Wars rights were owned by Atari at the time. Right?
Oh.
So for the entire first 10 years, they didn't create any Star Wars games. In that time, they were all Lucasfilm Games. They did original content, I think, with Labyrinth and with Indiana Jones. They did a couple of Indiana Jones games. But
with Labyrinth,
because Lucasfilm did Labyrinth. Yeah.
No shit. Yeah. I love that movie. I didn't know Lucasfilm did that.
So
interesting.
They did a couple. Atari did a few Indiana Jones games, but
no Star Wars games at that point.
No Star Wars games until that point. And then I believe it was 1990. There was a restructuring of a lot of Lucasfilms, including Lucasfilm Games. That's when LucasArts was born. And that's when we got like our first game that was with that dope ass logo, the Gold Man or whatever they call it.
Yep. I know exactly.
Iconic in Star Wars, in video games, just in general.
For sure, man. So, what was the first one that LucasArts?
So the very first Star Wars game that LucasArts developed was actually Star Wars X-Wing, the combat simulator on CD-ROM in 1993.
Yes. I never played it, but I recall it.
Yeah, so that was the very first Star Wars game that LucasArts developed in-house. And from there, they kind of just took off, right? So kind of the next big game that they did, I believe, a couple spin-offs of that. I mean, their flight simulators were kind of top-notch, right? I don't know. It's one of those games that I played years and years ago and have tried to get ROMs and stuff that I've just never really been able to successfully get. But they've been awesome. They were just amazing at the time. Following the success of id Software and Doom and Wolfenstein first and then Doom.
Yeah,
that kind of launched a whole wave of first person shooters. and that's when the
You
Jedi,
got
the
Dark
Dark Forces
Forces.
series came.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you kind of knew exactly what I was talking about.
I knew
once said
exactly. As
Doom.
soon as you said Doom, I was like, oh yeah, Dark Forces.
Yep. And that kind of opened the floodgates a little bit. I mean, from there we got the Rogue Squadron 1 and 2. You know, there's a bunch of games. And
what was the one that we played all the time where
it
we
was
would
Rogue
be the
Squadron
Jedi Starfighter and the
Slave
1 and just launch seismic charges and just
in
destroy
the Battle of Endor.
hundreds of... Yeah.
Yeah, there was Rogue Squadron Rogue Leader, I believe.
Rogue Leader,
for the GameCube. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh man, that was such a cool game.
That was a great game. It was a great game.
I mean, so pretty much from 1995 until probably 2006 or so, like that decade of time was just so many Star Wars games that we all love.
95 to 2006.
Around there, yeah.
So many.
We'll kind of. I'll go through a little bit
about some of them. Yeah.
So in that time frame, we got Rogue Squadron 1 and 2, the original Battlefront 2.
Oh man.
And I believe not all of these were developed by LucasArts, because LucasArts also acted as a publisher.
But they've also developed. They published all of these, right?
We got KOTOR 1 and 2, which we've already talked about. A bunch of just amazing games. Those two games were great. I mean, I've played KOTOR 1 probably 4 times in the last 6 years.
I was gonna say at least half a dozen times.
Anytime it came out, it came out on Android, I played it. Came out on PC. I bought it on Steam. You know.
Yep.
So those Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Academy.
Jedi Knight 2. What about Jedi Knight 1?
I believe Jedi Knight 2 is technically a sequel to Dark Forces, I believe. Kind of along the same lines. Cal Katarn. You were...
Yeah. I never played 2, but I did play Jedi Knight Jedi Academy.
which was amazing. Because the way you could just lob off people's hands and shit, that was so cool.
Well, it was one of the first and only Star Wars games I remember where lightsaber kills were one-hit kills.
I know.
As soon as you hit them with the lightsaber, they died. It took a while to hit them with the lightsaber because you were both swinging like crazy people. But I can remember just running up to people and just swinging all over the place. It has no structure, no form or anything like that. But as soon as you hit them, they died, which made sense because if you hit a person in real life with a lightsaber, assuming lightsabers exist, they die.
What I was going to say was with KOTOR, both games, they were kind of different. They were more kind of D&D based, right? Kind of a dice roll, sort of. I mean, it wasn't actually dice. But...
Yeah. Turn-based combat, and it wasn't obviously one hit didn't kill them.
It has pros and cons to it, right? It could be boring. I love it, but...
I liked that style of gameplay.
It also has the effect of both parties engaged being able to parry and doing those sorts of things. So it wasn't just
there was a little
swinging.
more right, exactly. There was a little more structure to the combat, right? Which I liked. Both styles have their place. I just always remember it being really interesting that this is the first Star Wars game that I remember that one hit kills for a lightsaber, which I thought was pretty cool. And you could customize what your lightsaber looked like, what you were wearing, the different species that you were. Obviously, I was always Keldor. But great game, great story, great gameplay, loved it.
The story of that was great too, because you got to go to the Masasi temples and shit like that on, I believe it was the Yavin, right?
Yavin.
There was some stuff there that, man, just
I think Luke's academy. He had an academy in Yavin.
Because I think in Jedi Outcast, I don't believe you were.
Yeah, I'm talking about Jedi Outcast.
Yeah, there was also Jedi Outcast, because I think that was the 3rd or 4th one.
Or no, wait, I'm talking about Jedi Academy.
There's Jedi Academy and Jedi Outcast. Maybe Jedi Knight 2 is Jedi Outcast. Maybe.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. I think it was Jedi Knight 2 Outcast, and then Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. Maybe that sounds about right.
Something like that.
Jedi Academy is the only one I ever played, but all similar concepts.
Next, so these aren't really in chronological order. I don't know when they all came out, but there was also Bounty Hunter. Do you remember that?
I will never forget Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter was amazing. It was a deep look, because in the other Star Wars games up to this point, I feel like you were either in a starship of some kind, or you were either a Jedi or a Sith or a Force user or a soldier. This is the first deep dive into, as far as gameplay goes, that we had into a bounty hunter, which was super sweet. The gameplay was awesome. You could go through and this wasn't part of the story. I don't know if you remember this, but like there were bounties. You could scan an area that you were in to see who had open bounties on them, and it would list the price that on their heads, dead or alive. You could either kill them and get that money, or you could like capture them with your whatever the
So
fuck
it wasn't
Jango
so
Fett had.
linear, right? Like a
Right,
lot of those
right.
games.
I mean, it wasn't
time
like
were,
completely open world, but
it
you
just
had
made it a
that.
little bit more open than
Exactly.
just a linear storyline.
Yeah. The combat style was amazing to jump, do backflips, and like strafe, and just go to town on your
Just playing
blasters.
that game nonstop with you, just on, it was on GameCube, and oh man, I wish I remembered more. But I wish I still had it. I don't have it. I need to.
I do
Did
have
you
it.
buy it on the Wii U or something like that?
No, I bought it on the PlayStation Network.
That's what it was. I knew it
I've
was
got it
recent.
on my PlayStation 4, I think, actually.
Well, we're going to have to play that.
Yeah. Introduction to a lot of great characters too. You remember Montross?
Okay, was it Mantra? Okay, am I thinking also, wasn't like Asajj Ventress?
It wasn't Asajj Ventress.
I think
It was so Montross was your rival bounty hunter in the game, and then you're thinking of Kamari Vosa.
That's what I'm thinking
She
of.
was like I wouldn't call her a Sith. She was more of like a dark Jedi. She was the one who was kind of leading the drug empire, the drug cartel, whatever you want to call it in the game. I can't try to remember what the name of it was. It's escaping me now. But and then subsequently, she was being obviously manipulated by Count Dooku. So Count Dooku was like the one at the very, very, very top that you learned at the end of the game. But oh man, great game, great gameplay, great story.
And that was, I remember it kind of gave a lot of context to episode 2, with Tyrannus, because
It totally did.
they were showing you kind of how Tyrannus came to recruit Jango Fett.
What was the line from episode 2? I was recruited by a man named Tyrannus on one of the moons of Bokta.
Yeah.
And
I think
they
that's
basically
how they show it.
that the game is how that happens, pretty much. It's how he meets Zam Wesell. It's how he gets the Slave One in the first place. It's how he gets his jetpack and all of his other
Man, now that you
stuff.
mentioned Slave 1 again, I just want to go back and play Rogue Leader and just
I know.
seismic charge some bitches. So to give a little bit of context, in Rogue Squadron Rogue Leader,
Yeah.
when in the Battle
Which
of
was
Endor,
like the third installment of Rogue
I believe
Squadron,
so.
I think.
that's where they just flood you with TIE fighters after TIE fighter after TIE fighter, and you can,
Hundreds of waves of TIE
it's
fighters.
insane. And you can emit those seismic charges from episode 2 that Obi-Wan is evading, and you can use those to just destroy hundreds.
Just launching them and
Launching a few,
like
boom.
everyone that explodes destroys at least 50 or so TIE fighters at a time. It's just so satisfying and so much fun to do.
So after that, well, not after that again, but there's other
Not
games that were,
chronological
again,
order, but
in that time frame, there was also, was it Star Wars Jedi Power Battles? Do you remember that?
oh
Where you
man,
could play as Plo Koon, Mace Windu,
Yeah.
Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan. I don't think you could play as Yoda. I don't really remember.
not that I recall, but you could play as, what was her name? She was on the Jedi Council.
Deba Baleba?
Sure, let's go with that. I don't really know
Shakti.
what her name. No, she had dark skin, and she had like this thing on her head that I wasn't never sure if it was a hat or if it was her like weird hair. It was like these weird dreadlocks that would like. She died in Order 66 by two of the clone. They were on like what the fuck do you call them? Battle of Endor, where Luke and
like
Leia
Scout
are
Troopers.
when Luke and Leia are going through the
Yeah,
woods on these speeder bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Order 66, they're on speeder bikes. The two clones back up and fire on her, and she dies.
I want to say that's Deba Baleba.
Is that
Yeah,
okay?
I
I
believe
don't know
so.
what the fuck her name was, but she was in it too. And another weird thing I remember about that game is you had lightsabers colors
Mhm.
to choose from that weren't just green, blue, or purple.
Orange. I remember orange.
Orange,
Yellow,
and then
I believe.
well, I guess red too. Yeah, you had red, but yeah, I remember there being specifically like a yellow or an orange one.
Now, is that the game where it kind of went along the storyline of episode 1?
Yes.
And you could, like, fight the rolly droids and
Yep, and you could
go through
deflect
the feed and all that. The castle.
feed palace. Yep, all that stuff, and it was
What a game.
it wasn't a side scroller necessarily, because it moved 3-dimensionally, and it was co-op, so you could both like be running along killing droids and stuff. You could actually, this was for PlayStation 1 too, so this, you could do a lot of stuff as far as like Star Wars games and Jedi go for that time period. And you could actually deflect the laser bolts back at the droids. You had to hit it at the right moment to like for them to actually go back to the droids and kill them. Oh man, that game was awesome.
Game I want to play again. So many games.
We just need to pick a day and go through and play them all again, man. I mean,
we need more than a day.
Well, yeah.
We can spend all
couple
day
weekends,
on battle
maybe.
or bounty hunter and Jedi power battles.
Not to mention some of these other ones, like Battlefront 2 was always one of my favorites. Original Battlefront 2.
Remember when we skipped school the day after episode
3
because we wanted to. We had watched episode 3 at midnight where we saw one of our teachers and at the premiere, and then we skipped school to kind of do a marathon of all the Star Wars to go watch it again,
which we didn't do.
Then we did watch it again, but we
didn't do a marathon.
Played.
Yeah, we didn't, because we were gonna watch all the Star Wars movies, I think. But we only rewatched episode 3.
Yeah.
Because we had like a pirated copy of it like day after it came out. And then we just played Battlefront 2 the rest of the time. And then it had a sweet campaign where it followed the Legion of the 501st. And like went through a narrative through their eyes and like how they... Do you remember that?
Sort of, but not really.
We gotta play it again.
I remember playing...
Just gotta play it again.
Co-op, like, together, destroying everything.
Just everything. And that introduced Force users, because the first one was purely just troops, like clones or droids or whatever the case may be. And this one introduced, once you killed so many people or got so many points, you had access to a Force user depending on what side you picked, like Darth Maul or Mace Windu or whatever. Sweet game, man. What else
now,
we got?
Was that the game where you could have the alternate ending of episode 3, or was there a Revenge of the Sith video game?
There was a Revenge of the Sith video game.
Okay, I forgot about that one, but I don't remember that game being that great, but I do remember the ending where you could essentially have Darth Vader, Anakin turn to the dark side, was Darth Vader, beat Obi-Wan, and then realized that Palpatine was playing him, and then killed him, and then took the mantle of the Sith.
And he was Darth Vader, but not in the cyborg suit Darth Vader. He was
just Anakin
freaking
to the dark side,
badass, extremely powerful.
Count Dooku turned Darth Tyrannus.
Yes,
that was Darth Vader.
Yes,
and
that was that game. And you're right. I don't remember. It wasn't like an extremely awesome game. I mean,
probably why I forgot about it, except for that ending.
It literally just went through the timeline of episode 3. I mean, you got to do some cool stuff. You got to play as Anakin and Obi-Wan and whatnot, but not a exhilarating game experience by any means.
So the other 2 games of note that I can think of, both of these I didn't really get into. I'm not much of a turn-based strategy game player, but there is also Empire at War, which I've heard really great things about.
Never played it myself either. Not on RTS.
I really played. I played a lot of StarCraft early on when it came out, I believe, for the 64, but I didn't really play much Empire War, mainly because I didn't really play many PC games at that point when it was out. That kind of came more later, but I did just actually find out that there apparently is a Thrawn like expansion that's came, obviously way back, so it's Thrawn from the original Thrawn books, not
the Thrawn that we know now today from Rebels.
The canon Thrawn. It'd be all legends, but that sounds awesome. I would like to try it out.
Super cool.
I think I do own that game from. Pretty much own all Star Wars games that came out on PC because of Steam summer sales and winter sales.
Same. I think that was like that bundle, and it was like super cheap, and it came with every game that ever came out on PC as far as LucasArts is concerned. And I never really played RTSs that much. I feel like I played a little bit of Halo Wars when that first came out, but never really touched Empire at War.
So finally, the last game that I can think of would be Star Wars Galaxies. And that was a game that I really because I never got into MMOs again because I wasn't into PC gaming. Everybody loved World of Warcraft, and this was, at the time, the Star Wars version of World of Warcraft. And, people, when I read about it now, everybody looks back on it like it was an amazing game. That was also one where they didn't really have Jedi. There was some I believe, some special way that you had to become a Jedi, and it was really limited. And then later on, they opened it up. And
Was it an MMO?
It was, yeah.
That's what I thought.
I remember playing just the free trials. I was poor and, in high school and wasn't able to do that.
What about Star Wars: The Old Republic? Is that that's post
So
LucasArts,
that
right?
is, I believe it started under LucasArts and it's still being worked
still
on
going
today.
Yeah. So I can
BioWare.
think of a big one that you didn't mention, and for me, I think it's definitely the best first-person Star Wars shooter. Multiplayer
I know
aside,
exactly what you're going to say.
multiplayer aside, I'm talking purely campaign. Republic Commando.
Yep. I don't know why. I actually had that on my list. I just skipped over it on accident.
I noticed that. I think second to KOTOR, that's probably got to be my number 2. I loved the shit out of that game.
Oh my god!
Played it so many times. The
art
way
commandos.
that yeah. Oh my gosh, it gave you such an insight into how badass some of these clone troopers could be. These commando troopers. The characters that they developed as the clones that were part of your squad were very entertaining and captivating. The story was fantastic. Gameplay, the way you could give your command, your squad commands, tell them to go and secure an area, tell them to form up on you, go forward and attack, place grenades at certain doors. It was...
Man, so I think you were always into that game a little more than I was. I don't know why, because I love first-person shooters. I did play it through. I just need to replay. Again, another one that we had to replay and revisit and just play all the way through.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it was also, not only was it one of my favorites, but it was also one of the biggest disappointments too, because the way that it ended left it open for where you were absolutely positive that we were going to get a number 2. And it never happened.
Well, that could be because of what came next for LucasArts. And that was, well, actually, so that was the time period between 1995, about 2005 or 6, and pretty much from then on, they kind of stopped. I don't know if there wasn't periodic work on Galaxy, Star Wars Galaxies, a little bit of expansions for Empire at War, but from then till 2012, there was nothing really. Star Wars: The Republic came out.
We had a big lull in Star Wars games. Sad time in history.
And that's kind of when Disney, the old Mickey Mouse, acquired Lucasfilm and thus also acquired LucasArts in 2012. And then in 2013, it was announced that all games in production for them, except for a couple, which I believe the only one I can actually think of is the Old Republic, like the MMO.
Yeah.
We're going to cease. So any video game in development.
So many disappointments. I can think of a couple. I assume we're going to talk about those, right?
So, well, I kind of want to get into the big one, which is Star Wars 1313.
1313. Another one that comes to mind was Battlefront 3.
There was Battlefront 3.
I remember Battlefront 3 being like pretty far into development, and then I remember seeing like test gameplay footage, and then all of a sudden it was just nothing.
So with Star Wars 1313, most of the information about this is I got from a book called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. If anybody, I know you are, if anybody's interested in just video games in general and has any interest in how they're made, I highly, highly recommend that book. It's awesome. They go through a bunch of games, big and small. Halo Wars, they went through that, how it was made, the troubles that they had. They did one of the God of Wars, I believe. They did Uncharted 4. Nice. They did Stardew Valley. That's why I play Stardew Valley now.
I need to read that book, man.
It's amazing.
It's like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but each chapter of that book is a different game.
A new game that they go through.
That's pretty cool. I like the structure of that.
And they end on Star Wars 1313, and pretty much everybody in it speaks on the condition of anonymity. I don't know if they're able to not talk about it or whatever, but it was actually a big endeavor, like the first big in-house development game that LucasArts was working on in like half a decade or more.
I remember being super excited when they announced it and seeing the gameplay
so do you
footage.
Remember
it was
some
like
of that?
It was like, yeah, I do. I remember vividly. I feel like I went back and rewatched the like announcement. It was like I don't know, there was 8 or 10 minutes of gameplay. It was like Mass Effect but Star Wars.
So there was so a little bit of history on this, it was announced as some. So I don't know if you also remember what they announced alongside with it, and it was called Star Wars Underworld. And
I do not remember that.
They were kind of touting that as the Sopranos of Star Wars. Like it was the first live action Star Wars in development at Lucasfilm, like pre Disney.
Oh.
And so they also announced an untitled game that was going to kind of coincide with it. Underworld was going to be about the underworld of Coruscant, kind of the mob bosses, not really focused on Star Wars or Jedi and like that, and just kind of the criminal underworld.
Yeah.
And this was announced alongside.
I don't remember that, but that you're upsetting me because that sounds awesome, and I know it's not going to happen.
You know, something you and I talk about a lot.
I do remember there being a talk about an adult Star Wars TV show. I don't remember what it was about, but
not like porn or anything.
No. An R-rated.
Sopranos.
Yeah, like mature rated. Yeah.
So that was announced alongside of it, and they pretty much, it would have been the first game in a while that LucasArts kind of developed alongside of. So I guess they were able to use a lot of the what would be canon content from Underworld, and they created this first of all, they what they wanted to do with it was an open world game. They thought it would be amazing to have just this entirely open world, think like Skyrim or just Elder Scrolls, those sorts of things, but having to do with Coruscant and some of the other planets. But they quickly realized that would be like hundreds of millions of dollars. So they were like, no, we're not going to do that. And what they wanted to do instead was they were really big fans of Uncharted, so they went the Star Wars Uncharted route. It was going to be the first non-Jedi focused Star Wars game since Bounty Hunter.
Yeah.
And they developed a bunch of characters.
Is this separate from 1313?
No, this
is 1313.
This became 1313.
I see.
Which was like the 13th level of like the underworld
down
of
course.
Coruscant.
Yeah.
Right? They got really, really far with it. Like they developed an entire character, all the animations around it, and all sorts of stuff. And at the time, George Lucas himself was, still the head.
Very
he
much
owned 100% of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he didn't play video games or really care too much, but he had a stake in this a little bit because of how closely tied it was with Underworld.
Yes.
And so also Underworld and 1313 were going to be between episodes 3 and 4. So kind of in that 19-year period, which we still don't have a whole lot of content around.
Right.
And
so after the fall of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's actually a funny story. They were a couple weeks ahead of, it was a couple weeks before E3 2012. And that's when they released that video that you talked about, right?
Yep.
Which we'll talk about a little bit. But I guess George Lucas came in and said he wanted it to be Boba Fett, the character to be Boba Fett.
What?
And they pushed back on that, and it just came down from upper management that the decision was final. It had to be about Boba Fett, no questions asked. And
after this footage had already come out,
they weren't allowed to talk about Boba Fett at E3, so they essentially released this gameplay footage that they knew wasn't going to be the game. But it was going to be similar, but when you get into this book, you start to understand how painful that is. Like, they developed animations around this one guy. They already voice recorded him. They already got some motion capture, all sorts of things until they just had to scrap it, which probably delayed the game by months and months and months and maybe years.
That's so
which could be one of the reasons
stupid,
why
man.
it was canceled in the end.
Yeah, that's so fucking stupid. Like, I hate, there's nothing wrong with exploring characters that nobody knows about or never seen before or heard of before.
And before reading this book, I had known about 1313, but I don't remember seeing any gameplay footage. So I went back and watched it. We'll link to it in the show notes. It's awesome. It's literally
so
Uncharted
cool.
/ like a Mass Effect third person style. And when you watch it, it starts out with them going down this elevator, and like a ship comes in and starts blowing them up, and he's trying to hang on, and then kind of Nathan Drake-esque pulling himself up.
It reminds me exactly like Uncharted, except it's Star Wars.
And it would have been absolutely amazing. But
it would have been fucking fantastic.
The old Mickey Mouse gave it the axe. So that's kind of where LucasArts left off, right? So, and again, remember, all those games we went through were in the time period between 1995 in 2005 or six. So
So roughly
a decade,
10 years, yeah.
about a decade, right? And that now, when LucasArts was acquired and shut down, it was about 7 years ago. And in that time frame, Battlefront 1 remake, trash, and Battlefront 2 remake, trash, and a couple of mobile pay-to-play games, and that's it in 7 years.
I can't even describe how badly that makes me feel.
Now, that's not to say that they didn't try. I don't know if you remember. So in 2013, they shut down LucasArts, gave the rights to EA. Terrible decision.
Horrible fucking decision. The worst
And
thing that could have happened to Star Wars games.
At the time, they announced, I believe they said 3 different Star Wars games were going to be in production. One by DICE, who made, I believe, Dead Space. And that was going to be an open... No, not DICE. DICE
it wasn't
is
DICE.
Battlefront.
DICE did Battlefront.
The people that made Dead Space, I forget what they're called.
I can't recall either.
Then there was Visceral Games, which was also making an open world game.
Yep.
And I believe
I remember that
Respawn
getting
was the other
announced,
one.
and we got like a little tiny 5-second clip of like what it looked like.
So as far as I know, that was going to be the open world game that we all want, and story driven, blah blah blah. That we because that's what I want. I want a story driven.
We as
game.
Star Wars and video game fans deserve that. We
So-
deserve it, man.
And I think this lends to part of the reason why. I mean, don't get me wrong, Last Jedi, and The Force Awakens, and I'm sure Episode 9, whatever it's going to be called, is going to make a shitload of money. And a lot of people are going to like it. I like, The Force Awakens, kind of The Last Jedi a little bit. Solo wasn't well received. I loved it. Rogue Squadron, loved it. But I do have a feeling that at least the hardcore Star Wars gamers would be, Star Wars fans would be a little bit more appreciative of this go around at Star Wars if they were able to play a game that kind of gave more context, like we were talking about with Bounty Hunter, that it gave additional context around
to what was
some
going
of the
on in the
players.
movie.
That they were engaged into it. I think that them doing this is a really big disservice to Star Wars and their fans.
Fans are missing that level of engagement with this next generation series, and it's horrible. Lots of kids haven't got to experience it yet. We were lucky enough to grow up when we did and got to play all those great games.
Probably why we like Star Wars as much as we do.
We had much more than just the movies and there weren't any TV shows back then. There's some TV shows now which are okay. I mean, Clone Wars was great. Rebels was pretty good. But it's not the same as being thrown in and immersed into a world that you can control. Right. I'm pretty sure this is true too, and I don't remember what game it was. It was a game that came out recently. It made the most money out of any piece of entertainment.
Oh,
entertainment, not just video game. Any book, any movie, any TV, anything that's ever been most money out of any piece of entertainment. What do you remember? What
I believe
game?
That was Red Dead Redemption 2.
Was it Red Dead Redemption 2?
Which is I love it. I actually. I haven't finished it yet because it got it dragged on at the end. But if it was Star Wars, I would like it a lot. But don't get me wrong, I played the game obsessively for months.
I am ashamed to say I haven't played it myself. I've heard nothing but great things about it. But it's visually amazing and super immersive.
Like watching
world.
a movie. Like my fiance Nora, she actually didn't hate when I was playing video games because she. Was able to
a really long movie or a TV series that you get to.
And she also liked
play.
every time that the guy was like, "It's all right, girl," to his horse.
I don't have any context around that, but I assumed it was to some sort of animal.
It was a horse. That I named Dobie.
But back to my point. Yeah, the movies make lots of money. Yeah, some of these things make lots of money too. But they're missing out on a lot more money that they can be making by releasing a couple of really good games.
I just want something like Skyrim, something open world but still story driven. There's the Assassin's Creed games that the one I played was kind of like Skyrim, or Witcher 3, I guess is more like.
Was it Odyssey, Origins?
Yeah, I think it was Origins. But Witcher 3, like all of these just rich games that in Red Dead Redemption 2
is another great
Uncharted are also games that you play and it's like a movie, right? There's just so much content in the Star Wars universe. Yes, just so it disappoints me. So I remember they canceled a game in like 2017, then they canceled a game late last year, and it just pisses me off. I want a damn Star Wars game that is story driven and ideally open world, but just something.
Which we're going to be getting one, not an open world, but as of right now, we're supposed to be getting a game. What's it called? The Fallen Jedi?
Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Fallen Order, yes, which is made by Respawn, formerly Infinity Ward.
Yes, and they are responsible for Titanfall.
Respawn is responsible for Titanfall, and then before when the original Infinity Ward was responsible for Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2.
And they are which I don't know if I know you know this. They are also the developers of Apex Legends.
Yes.
So they have a rich history. They make great games. It's been fully announced. They have an EA page up for it, and we should hopefully. We definitely are. There's going to be a panel at Star Wars Celebration in the coming weeks that hopefully we get to see some gameplay. Hopefully, hopefully it's not like EA or E3 2012 where they scrap it even though they already showed a little gameplay.
I can't even tell you how furious I will be if we get another canceled Star Wars game.
So a little bit of background on what we know so far. This is pretty much all that I know so far, is that it's going to come out in late 2019, which 2019 is going to be just an amazing year for Star Wars. We have Jedi Fallen Order. We have The Mandalorian, presumably.
Yeah.
Which we're also going to find out more about at
Celebration.
Star Wars Celebration. We have Clone Wars, I believe, is coming back. The final season.
The final season that never happened. Yes, I keep forgetting about that.
Obviously, episode 9, the closure of the latest trilogy. So there's a lot coming out. We do know
Galaxy's Edge.
Galaxy's Edge, of course. How could I forget? We just talked about that last couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we do know that it's coming out in 2019. And we know that it's going to be an original as of right. It's a video game, so it's probably not coming out in 2019.
Hopefully, it does come out. If you've
read Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, games get delayed more often than they don't get delayed.
Which is fine because
I want it to be good.
I want it to be good.
Don't rush it. Don't let it be Battlefront 1, like the remake.
They rushed that out so fast.
Don't make it pay to play. Make it a damn story. But speaking of story, they did say it's going to be an original story.
Sick.
And it follows, quote, a surviving Padawan set shortly after episode 3.
Sweet.
So given what we know, you're going to be a Jedi of some sort. Probably, something where you're a Padawan, so hopefully you have to build your way up. So hopefully there's some RPG aspect to it about building up
I just hope it's not another Force Unleashed.
I would prefer that.
I guess.
I just want to.
I want something. I
want single player too. I don't want it to have to be online.
As long as it's something we haven't played before, and it's just single player campaign.
Give context. Give a little bit more, because again, we don't have a whole lot between episodes 3 and 4.
No, we don't.
So this is one of the I think
at least not a lot of canon stuff.
The first canon thing between episode 3 and 4 since Rogue One, at least, which. That was barely before episode 4.
Right.
But I don't, new canon stuff, I think this might be the first thing.
Rebels, if you don't
there's
count
probably
Rebels.
Some comic books, which I haven't gotten into
Star
as
Wars
much
Rebels.
Oh, shit, yeah, you're right.
So there's a lot of stuff in
so there's a lot
there,
of
I guess.
stuff there,
But that doesn't cover the whole time.
It's 19 years.
Period, yeah. So. And then Rebels only takes place over a couple years, so if they cancel this game, I don't know. I'm just going to cry.
So right now we do know, confirmed, there's in development Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. They're going to continue developing Battlefront 2. I see posts after posts on Twitter from EA about new content, Geonosis, which, I'm kind of excited about. I should get it.
I kind of want to boot it up again. It's been a while since I played it. I want to see what they've added, and I know that I'm pretty sure they took away that whole loot crate concept.
See, I held strong with my my boycott of this game. It was hard, but now looking back on it, I don't regret it. Hopefully they did take that aspect away from it, but
You didn't miss a lot, man.
And we also know that the Old Republic is still being developed. I mean, we didn't really talk a lot about Old Republic. I played that game quite a lot. I remember like 2 years ago we sat through and played a bunch of it. But I've played that over 50 hours of that game. I have like 2 characters that are different storyline. Like there's like the Sith and then the counselor, like the warrior counselor. There's like 4 factions on each side. I've only ever played the dark side because, I mean,
why the fuck would you play?
I've heard the Jedi Counselor story mode is very good, but that's one where, I mean, it's made by BioWare. They have a good history of Star Wars games and also just regular games. Not since being bought by
until EA took over, yeah.
But that's one where the storylines are there's so much content there. There's 4 different storylines that kind of interact with each other, but it's just I can't get past, you know, level 50 when I'm going through and killing these creatures over and over and over again just to be able to kill the next boss. Like, it gets repetitive, but
that's why I really don't try to, like, I can't get into MMOs that much just because of that. It's just such like a commitment. It's a little overwhelming for me, man. I don't know. Too much time, dedication required for massive games like that. I'm glad that it's still out there and exists, and they're still putting work into it. It's awesome.
Well, I think that's gonna sum it up for me. I can't wait to find out more in like 2 weeks from now with
Celebration,
Star Wars Celebration, Jedi Fallen Order. I mean, speaking of Celebration, again, we are going. We will have an episode coming out in the next week or 2.
Yeah, we will.
Kind of give a little preview as to what we want, what we expect, and then expect a bunch of stuff after episode or after Celebration.
And you'll find out if we're pissed or not because we did or did not get into the panels that we signed up for the lottery.
Oh, we're gonna get in, damn it.
It's gonna be dope. I'm super excited.
I'm very pumped for it.
So we done?
I think we're done. So, you know, we didn't really talk about it last time, but we are available on all the social media platforms. Well, most. Facebook, Twitter. We have an Instagram. We don't really post on it, but you can find us at RoTKast. That's RoTKast on all of those, and RoTKast.com. Feel free to send us any feedback, you know, all 3 of you listening right now.
As long as it's positive. We don't want to hear about your fucking complaints.
I want some positive, constructive criticism, okay?
All right, fine.
How many times do I say, tell me to, you know, say, hey, stop saying so much. Stop giving positive reinforcement. Say, you know, stop smacking your lips or whatever it is.
I want
to hear it. I want to hear it. I want to know it, and I want to fix it, make this better. You can email us at rotcast@gmail.com, or just DM us on Twitter. They'll be open soon. So I think that's it for us. You got anything else, Sean?
Nope.
All right, we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Later.